Yes, welcome everybody. Cannabis News with Joe Klare. It is March 29th, 2019, presented as always by the Marijuana Times. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. You can find this show, a bunch of great articles, and more at marijuanatimes.org. Today, talking about North American tribes in California looking to get into the regulated cannabis market. Also, John Hickenlooper, former governor of Colorado, has some things to say about drug decriminalization. He's also running for president in 2020. And a look at MedMen's financial troubles from CNBC. All that's coming up. First, of course, Cannabis News is brought to you by NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Make sure you're regulatory compliant in the state that you're growing in. You're growing safe and poison-free. You're not using harmful chemicals on what you are growing. You do all these things. With NatureSide, nature-side.com, a proud sponsor of Cannabis News. Go check them out. They're awesome. First story by yours truly. At marijuanatimes.org, Native American tribes look for entry into the California marijuana market. Basically, as you know, adult use marijuana sales and possession and growing are legal in California. And Native American tribes in California, they are not able to access the regulated California market for legal marijuana, but they're also not subject to California regulations. They're allowed to do pretty much whatever they want on their land and regulate it the way they want. But the North American tribes, well, they want, the Native American tribes, they want access to the regulated market without having, California regulators coming on their land and telling them what to do. They want to keep their sovereignty. So it's kind of a back and forth going on. As I pointed out in the article, they may be better off without the heavy regulations and taxes that come with being in the regulated California market, which we'll talk about more when we talk about MedMen. But they're going to continue, I assume, and they say, continue to try to get into the market and come to some sort of compromise with state lawmakers to where they're not giving up any of their independent nation's sovereignty, but still get to sell marijuana or whatever, or have businesses in the greater California market. So we'll continue to update you on that story and see how that goes. This next story from marijuanamoment.net. Let states decriminalize heroin and cocaine. Presidential candidate Hickenlooper says. It's very interesting because if you remember, John Hickenlooper, back in 2012 and 2014 rather, was very much against Amendment 64 in Colorado that legalized adult use marijuana. That was 2012. Sales started in January 2014. He's very much against it. He kind of changed his tune over the years. He said, the sky didn't fall in. A lot of things we thought were happening. A lot of the bad things we thought would happen did not happen. Now he's running for president in 2020 as a Democrat, trying to get the Democratic nomination. BuzzFeed editor-in-chief Ben Smith moderated a conversation with Hickenlooper at South by Southwest. Started with marijuana and beer, asking Hickenlooper about those things, and then he moved on to harder drugs, whether or not they should be decriminalized. Hickenlooper said the federal government shouldn't stop states from decriminalizing drugs like heroin and cocaine or allowing for supervised consumption facilities where people can inject illegal substances more safely. He also said governments should seriously consider legalizing and regulating sex work as a means to keep providers safe. So, not exactly extreme positions anymore. And as I've said many times, the same logic for legalizing marijuana or decriminalization or whatever is the same logic for every other drug that people use that they use and they're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. If they do infringe on the rights of someone, then that's a crime. But even someone using heroin in their own house, you can say it affects society, but you can, like I said before, you can say that about anything. You say Big Macs affect society on a much more grander scale than heroin does. I don't know. I mean, someone who's not infringing the rights of anyone else, maybe you don't agree with what they're doing. Maybe what they're doing is detrimental to their well-being. But where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line to where you're going to tell people what they can or cannot do in their own home if they're not infringing on the rights of anyone else? This last story from CNBC.com, cannabis retailers MedMen's financial troubles are a warning for the marijuana industry. Again, this goes back to a lot of the heavy taxes and regulations in California, which is hampering dispensary operators, retail shop operators like MedMen. MedMen is the best-known cannabis retailer in the United States, at least according to CNBC. Yet in what could be a warning for the American marijuana industry, it is racing to raise cash to cover its mounting losses. Financial statements released in February showed that MedMen risked running out of money within months unless it raised more. Last week, MedMen alleviated any immediate financial crisis by securing a $100 million credit line from a cannabis-focused investment company. The loan may ultimately be raised to $250 million if MedMen's performance improves. They have pretty onerous terms of the financing. MedMen must repay at 6% over LIBOR and issue warrants. I don't know what LIBOR is, but it's highlighted if you want to go check it out in the link in the description of this video. But the fresh cash will buy the company time. Its shares, which have fallen almost 60% since October, have risen slightly since the announcement. Current shares of MedMen are worth about $1.6 billion, down from a high of roughly $3 billion last year. Again, MedMen finding that the legal market, it's hard to compete with the illegal market with high taxes and regulations and all of that, really hampering what they're doing. And a lot of businesses are going to see this as time goes on. And I know it's a subject that kind of beat the dead horse about, the proverbial dead horse. But, I mean, it's... And in California, even it says they're beginning to... legalized dispensaries and regulators have begun to call for greater enforcement against the illegal market in California, raising the potential that legalization may actually lead to a new wave of cannabis-related arrests. As I said many times before, you got to loosen the restrictions, loosen the regulations, lower the taxes, and let the industry establish itself. And then later on, if you want to tinker with things and whatever, you can do that. But if you start with high regulations and high taxes and high restrictions and a lot of restrictions, and you cripple the industry before it even gets out of the gate. What if a company like MedMen were to go out of business and all those businesses close, and then the state comes back and says, "Oh, we're going to lower taxes now." Well, what does that do for the businesses that are already gone by the wayside? Nothing. This notion that we have to start with, we have to start with the heavy regulation and then back it off. That's not going to work. That's going to cripple the legal industry. And it may never be able to recover, no matter how much you lessen restrictions after that. If you wipe out enough investments, people aren't going to want to come into the industry. They're going to move on to other investments. They're going to avoid the industry. It's going to be bad. I don't know. Again, as I've said many times before, who am I? Just a lowly video guy doing this 5 days a week for you. Thank you for liking and sharing and commenting on the videos. Check us out on Apple Podcasts as well, the audio version of the show. Search us there. Search the Marijuana Times, also on YouTube and Vimeo. MarijuanaTimes.org, of course. Thank you to NatureSide, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. At the end of another week, go enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you next week right here on Cannabis News.